Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, here's what I want to work on today. I want to try and get some of this flagstone that they pulled out from the patio when they did the work on that a few weeks ago, and kind of get that sorted and get some of the stuff placed into different areas. I've got some ideas of what I want to do with some of this stuff, but first thing I got to do is sort it for the kinds of things I want to do with it. Now I'll admit I've cheated a little bit because I've already sorted some of the stuff. Some of the littler pieces I'm just trying to kind of sort into categories. You know, the big thick pieces like this I can use for like stepping stones. Some of the smaller pieces that might be for like decorative kinds of stuff. And then even some of the waste. And of course I've got a couple of really massive pieces which I have kind of special uses in mind for. But yesterday when I was moving stuff around, I got to a couple of these really massive pieces, and they're so big I can't even move them. I was using a little refrigerator cart to move some of the medium large pieces around, but you know, and I probably could move this one if I could get it up on end, but unfortunately this one is so heavy I'm going to probably have to cut this one in half. But here's what I want to do with these. I think I've mentioned this before, but this is kind of the low end of the yard. It's right up against the house. The yard kind of slopes down from this way, and any water that accumulates in the yard kind of accumulates in here. So every time it rains, or every time I run the sprinklers, I end up with a puddle of water here. In fact, what I've kind of done is really shut down and decrease the amount of time the sprinkler runs in this section, just to minimize the amount of runoff that goes here. Now at one point, and I think, I don't know for sure, I think I've talked about this before, but I think this was the original sidewalk that was put here. I mean, it probably ran all the way around to the gate over there, but at some point, maybe when they installed the air conditioner, maybe when they installed the pool pump and pool filter, they built this up a little bit. So what I want to do is take one of these really massive, huge flagstone pieces and put it here. That'll raise the level up several inches and hopefully offset the amount of water that accumulates here. So I would love to move one of those big pieces over here all by itself and as one piece, but unfortunately that's not going to happen, and I think I'm going to probably have to move them over in two pieces and then just kind of slide them together and have just a little crack between them. And since that's where the garden hose is, that'll kind of make it nice to get out there and get into the garden hose without having to walk through all the mud that's in here, or even wade through the water that sometimes seems to accumulate here. And then ultimately, like I said, I want to build up the dirt level all the way up to the level of the concrete there, which means I'm going to be going up, probably putting 4 to 6 inches of dirt in here. And once I get to the point where the level of the soil is higher in here, it shouldn't pool, it shouldn't be such a mess anymore. So that's what I think I want to start with today, is I want to try and get one of the flagstone pieces, one or two of the flagstone pieces into here. And before I can move that big one, and there's several of the big ones there, I'm going to have to cut it in half. So I'm going to pull out a hammer and chisel, and we're going to try and split that thing down the middle. Now fortunately I got a little experience splitting stones with a hammer and chisel, because I had to do that with some of the stuff that was here. You know, for instance, that piece right there that's where the pole is for the fence, I had to cut that one in half, and I was able to do a pretty good job. I also had to cut a lot of these pieces when I ran the border along the fence to keep flashing. So hopefully I can use kind of the same technique and split one of those stones or a couple of those stones right down the middle and make two halves, and then it'll be a little easier to handle. Now as you can tell, it's kind of a nice breezy day today, but we're supposed to get into the 80s today, and the truth is, for the foreseeable future, it seems like the temperatures are going to be in the upper 70s or 80s, so hopefully that's going to do a good job on helping to warm up the pool a little bit. I noticed just in a 24-hour period yesterday, the pool went from 68 degrees to 72 degrees, so it won't take a whole lot of really warm days to get that thing up into the 80s, where it'll become habitable again. So I'm looking forward to being able to use that pool again. Now the secret to splitting a stone like this, it's actually pretty easy. What you want to do is, I've got a heavy sledgehammer and a iron chisel, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a straight line right across the top of the stone, where I want the split to be. And what'll happen is every time I hit the stone with a chisel, it'll create a tiny, almost microscopic fracture that'll go all the way through the stone, and when I get to one side, it'll literally split in half. And at least that's how it's worked in the past with some of these stones and other stones I've worked with. So we're good. That's the process I'm going to use. Is, like I said, I'm just going to make a straight line all the way across with a hammer and chisel, and with a little luck, we'll split this thing right down the middle. Now, in terms of personal protective equipment, I'm going to be using gloves to protect my hands and the goggles to protect my eyes from flying shrapnel when I'm cutting into the stone, because the stone tends to fly when it happens. So safety first. Alright, so I'm through the first stone. It wasn't quite as neat of a cut as cutting some of the cinder block stuff, but I did get it to more or less follow the line, and now this is going to be a little bit more manageable to move and to manipulate and get into position. So I'm going to move this over now into the location I showed you a minute ago, and we'll go from there. Move on to the next one. Alright, so we got one piece in place. I'm going to probably move the next piece and move it into here. I'll take some of the smaller pieces and try and kind of fill in the gaps here. And there will be little cracks between the stones, but what I'll do is I'll fill that in with soil, and it'll be like grouting, and it'll, you know, basically the goal here is to get it up above the current level. And I've raised the level now up to the level of the sidewalk here, because this flagstone now is at the level of this. It's actually maybe just a hair higher. So that's good. That's kind of what I want. What I want is just kind of a solid platform that I can walk on here without getting my feet dirty, without feet getting muddy and all that. So we're going along well. Let's get the next piece in here. So I got the second big piece in here. I found just kind of a little triangular piece that kind of fit into that hole really well, and actually just a little bit of a shaving that fit into the little hole there. And I've kind of filled it in just with the dirt, and I think it's starting to look good. It's nice and solid. I can walk on it. It doesn't wobble around a whole lot, which is kind of what you want. You know, I want it to be solid, and ultimately these things are so heavy that they'll kind of settle in a little bit and they'll become more stable with time, especially when some of the dirt in between the cracks kind of settles in there and kind of fills in around any voids that might be underneath the stones. But like I said, these things are so massively heavy that it shouldn't be a problem for long. Especially get a little bit of water in here, that'll kind of flow everything under, and it'll solidify up, and it'll be nice and solid, and shouldn't have any more flooding in this area now. Now I want to do one more stone kind of underneath the garden hose here, just so I can kind of walk around here and get over here to where the faucet is without having to walk through the mud. I've already taken like the little tiles that were in here. They weren't doing much good, and once we get to the point where we fill this up here with more soil and bring the soil level up, then that'll solve that problem once and for all, and we shouldn't have any more issues. There is one other issue I'm going to have to deal with, and I've known about this for a while. This water spigot here leaks a little bit when you turn it on. You can kind of see there's water dripping out of there. So I'm going to have to replace that at some point. That isn't a big deal. That's a $10 or $15 part at Home Depot, and you know, maybe 20 minutes worth of work, if that. It'll be a little bit more complicated because when you do something like this, you got to turn off the water at the main, but that's not really that hard of a job to do. So we'll probably get that done, and once we get that done, then we shouldn't have any. That should also reduce the amount of water that's kind of accumulating in this area, because that's clearly one of the sources of water in here. I mean, the sprinkler heads are doing it too, but you know, we gotta eliminate all the sources of water in here. Now, I know it looks like I probably haven't done a whole lot because I've just moved 3 stones in here, but these 3 stones are massively heavy, and I'm exhausted right now, so I'm gonna take a little break and we'll pick this up in a little bit. See you then. Alright, so I pretty much got the flagstone set in this area now. Got kind of the dirt tamped down in between the cracks a little bit. What I'm gonna do next is just kind of run the hose over it, clean the stone off. That'll also kind of moisten the dirt in between, and that'll allow it to settle a little bit and hopefully fill in some of the holes. I know this stone here still wobbles a little bit, but that'll change with time. Like I said, they're all really heavy stones, so over time, you know, the soil underneath it will settle and it'll get smooth, and the rocks will be very, very solid when they're in there. And I know that'll work because you may remember a few weeks ago I put these stones into the ground a little bit because they were sticking up and they were a threat to the lawnmower. And some of them wobbled a little bit when they were first in there, but they've all kind of settled and they're all nice and solid in there. So time will tell, but those stones over here should settle really well and we'll be in good shape. So like I said, I'm going to just run some hose over this right now to clean off the stones and kind of settle everything into the cracks. But I think we are done for the day. So I think that's all I have for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night. One more thing before I end today's video. A couple days ago, my friend Beth sent me another video of Flash and her dog Moxie. So let's take a look at that.